Hello. So I don't really have a topic per se today. I guess the topic is me. And I was thinking about it going, do I really need to do this explainer video? Do I need to say who I am and what I stand for? And, I'm a big proponent of writing your own story. And I think it's really easy when people don't, understand how your brain works, who don't understand what it feels like on the inside, or haven't been there for your history and for all of those moments that make you who you are, because those are so varied, and a person can be shaped by little things throughout the course of their history. It's very easy to think that you know somebody, and in the reality there's so much more to what makes a person. I mean, arguably through psychology, we could talk about birth order, we could talk about, family dynamics, and that's more psychology than I want to be getting into in these talks. But you might ask yourself why I do talk so much about psychological issues or considerations, maybe, or how those things play a factor in teams. And really, there's a couple of things at play that kind of drive what I speak on. The first thing is I have a very eclectic, that's for lack of a better way to put it, work history. I mean, everybody has the jobs they have when they're teenagers. I was very fortunate that because I speak French fluently, that my first major corporate job was for a large corporation here in Canada that's pretty well known, in their corporate head office. And that job was a call center job, but it did give me a strong understanding of how hierarchy works, teams work, process and structure, and documentation. I mean, documentation, when we talk about in the MSP space, I mean, that's unique to how we do things, but documentation in companies, specifically ISO certified companies, is a heavy part of how they do things. And understanding how that can play a factor in success has actually, as my formative first major real official big girl job, has shaped a lot of how I approach things afterwards. So that was a job that I had when I was in high school, and also putting myself through college the 3 times that I went to college. College, for any of my American friends, I mean, it's different in Canada and the US how we identify them, but it's more like trades or hands-on or applied schools. I think that's like your state schools. I don't know. I could be wrong. In any case, the first time I went to college, I went for something called human relations, which is basically fundraising for charity, how to within the nonprofit sector, structure organizations, structure training methods, fundraising, not necessarily event planning, but similar to how does that look, and that's within the Canadian confines of the rules here for nonprofit organizations and charities. And then it also helped connect you to the different NPOs already operating, and help you get a sense for how they all help deliver different services to your communities and how those all interplay. I did the first year of that program, which was really eye-opening, but I think it was my first placement, which was actually an amazing experience. I worked for the United Way, which is a pretty large charity within the Canadian sphere. I think that's actually Canada and US, but I could be wrong. In any case, for our local chapter, which encompassed 6 major cities, I was tasked with reviewing the training material for new volunteers, and in the end, I ended up rewriting the training. I don't know if that's just the older sister in me, because I am the oldest of 4, but it was something that I was really proud to have been entrusted with. But it was also eye-opening about how that structure could really help every new volunteer that comes in understand where they belong, and what their purpose was and how they could align with the goals. And while that was fun, I also had to go through payroll deductions for all the people that had done dress down funds and make sure that they aligned and matched. It was this is before, technology was, I'm dating myself a little bit, but this is before technology was super involved in these types of things. And this is being not for profit. Like it's not something where they would have invested any time into it. So it's a manual process. So going through actual pay stubs and seeing that it matched up with what we had in terms of donations. So that was fun. Not really. And I think, while it's necessary, it was kind of eye-opening that some of the work that I thought I would be doing was not necessarily what I would end up doing. And it was looking at what the next year of programming was. And I was like, I don't think this is a job. I think this is definitely something that it was good that I took because I'm passionate about doing things for my community. And I want to make sure that I help move things forward. Like I'm on the Chamber of Commerce, and the stuff that we talk about in terms of homelessness, which yes, on the Chamber of Commerce, we talk about that. All of that training that I had kind of helps play a factor in that and understanding the demographics of what's out there. The second time I went to college, again, just for 1 year, I took human resources. I think I like the word human. Human resources is, how do I put this gently? It is a mix between the understanding of people's motivations and how organizational behavior works, which is the stuff that I found super interesting, and policy writing. Not fun. Policy writing, how to address, workplace conflicts, not necessarily with the human in mind, but with the workplace in mind, which is the opposite of what I wanted to do. So that was abandoned pretty quickly. I did find the organizational stuff, like the organizational behavior stuff, really interesting though. Just the idea of how teams are structured and how one can set up an organization in order to help support, like create the right foundation, right? And the third time was the only time I've actually graduated from a program. And I thought, oh, this is going to be it. And that was from social service work, which, I mean, again, is still based in humans, but wildly different than what I ended up doing after and what I do now. But I'm very thankful for that diploma. I mean, I learned a lot in that program. And one of the things that I learned that was super important was a social service worker is often, the pathway to getting your Bachelor of Social Work or your Master's of Social Work. And it's like the precursor. So the people who run group therapy or who run and facilitate life skills training, those are people that take social work. So it really helped me understand how to take those team dynamics I had learned in all my previous roles, but then apply it to how can I do these things to teach somebody and, help lift them up, help them achieve their goals. And, while three of my placements that I did while in that, because it was like a cooperative program where I worked in the field and different aspects of the field, taught me that that is not a place for me. I would probably burn out very quickly because I'm way too empathetic. And when people don't make the changes that I would hope that they would make, I take it personally, which is tough. It's not something that you can do if you're in that field because people are human and they make choices that they need to make for their own life. And pardon the dogs barking in the background. And so, I left that program. I graduated, which was an accomplishment. I was super happy about that. I ended up working part-time at the call center back that I had worked at before, as well as facilitating computer and computer literacy programs for seniors and new immigrants, which is basically just like literally walking through how does Windows work, how do you interact with the internet, how do you send an email for people who hadn't had exposure to that. Now, I'm dating myself, but that was like 19 years ago. So we can kind of figure out where we are in the trajectory. And while that was, fun, it was also in another not-for-profit. And not-for-profit work is really, it's kind of volatile because you're dependent on a grant. You're dependent on, if you're going to make a living out of it anyway, you're dependent on how you move forward is dependent on whether or not there's funding for it. And, that's something where the funding wasn't there for that. And so it didn't continue. And when I was trying to think of what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, at this point, photography had become my hobby and I was kind of doing it on the side. And, my husband at the time, he was probably about 7 months into starting our current business that we have now. And I was like, I think I want to start a business. You finally got some money coming in from this. And I think I want to start a business. I'm going to try and make photography my business while I'm doing this other work part-time. And I did that for about a year. I worked at the call center and tried to make photography my business, and until it took off. And photography was like a perfect blend of all of my artistic self that was in all my hobbies growing up and my people skills that I had learned. You show up on a wedding day and you have to deal with stress and, the family dynamics and all these things that I had learned about in school. But then also like capture the story in front of you and be able to handle that pressure and perform under pressure. And that was my life for 16 years. I told beautiful love stories and calmed people. I sewed brides back into dresses. I, held children and babies. I, listened to tears and hugged people and cared about them and their families and went to funerals and, had this large extended family. And it was, for the most part, wildly fulfilling. But it also came at some personal cost. I mean, that job is, oh, wow. It's like nights, weekends. It's a lot of time away from your family. It's a lot of investment of, you're not just like any small business. You're not just doing the job of photographer. You also have to be the website designer and, the customer service person and the accounting person. And I was like, I would really just love to figure out what else I could do that would make me happy, but that wouldn't be this intense. And the goal was to go and work in our MSP, because I had always worked part-time in it, but to now work full-time in it and maybe just take some time to help out with that and grow that, because at the time we were like 3 or 4 people, and see what else I might be interested in. I did not expect to find a home. I did not expect that all of my skills would translate into this type of business. But yet, one of the things that I find incredibly powerful is that in a world where there is so many people that think in binary ways, and maybe there's decision tree logic, but there's always a this and or that, and you're always cutting a problem in half. I have a brain that actually thinks about the problem from all of the factors in one go, especially the emotional side of it. So, as we grew and built our team, there is a huge need for the consideration and for the skill set that I would bring in order to make sure that the people who show up to work every day feel fulfilled. And now, as I'm taking on roles in building community, a lot of times when I think about it, I think about what I learned in school, and I think about all of the experience I've had to this point, and wanting to make sure that I give something back. I'm wanting to make sure that I, bring that empathy that might sometimes be missing when we think about ones and zeros, and, give back to the place that kind of helped me, especially over the last 2 years, discover something about myself. Because the reality is I've always been a nerd. I've always been around computers and IT. Some of the other jobs that I've had is I've worked for some of the computer manufacturers. I've worked just using technology and adapting to it over time. And I've also, I've had a computer almost my whole life. I've been fortunate to be able to have that, even though I was a child of the 80s. First users of the internet. And I feel like it's been a blessing, to see the things that I was told when I was younger was not for me, because I'm a girl, whatever that, that connotation is, that wasn't allowed at the time, now become part of my sphere. I can bring all those things that I, gathered on the journey away from what I probably should have been doing, and now bring it into this journey and kind of marry the two. And for me, that's going to be a huge driver towards anything that I do, whether it be these videos or whether I contribute in volunteering in any way. It's always about, looking at what is needed, what is the gap, what is missing. And because I have this skill set that's all over the place, I do find that a lot of the conversations I enter into end up coming from the things that were achieved outside of this industry. And these videos that I make where I talk about, these skill sets, I'm talking about things that I learned about in school. I'm practicing these things myself. I'm trying to get better at them. And I think that and I've said this before, one of the best ways to do that is to, share and to have other people help teach you along the way and comment. And I've received so many amazing messages and confirmations that this is the right thing to do. I just kind of wanted to explain it so that if you are going, why is this tech woman, talking about psychological safety? It's because at our core, whether we work at an MSP in IT tech, or we're, doing any kind of a job, we are humans. We process, we need to incorporate the feeling side, not just the logical side. And that's an important part of it, and something that will always keep me engaged in conversation, because there's room for both. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.